The generation that was trusted. Stop for a second and think about this. What if the very thing modern childhood is missing is freedom? People who grew up in the 1970s didn't just experience a different decade. They experienced a completely different philosophy of childhood. One that didn't rely on constant supervision, endless explanations, or adult-managed outcomes. And without realizing it, that freedom quietly shaped their brains in powerful ways. Back then, childhood wasn't scheduled. It was open-ended. A 7-year-old could be sent outside after breakfast with one rule: come back before dark. No phones, no trackers, no adults hovering nearby. Just neighborhoods, friends, and hours that belonged entirely to kids. And something remarkable happened in that space. Children learned how to create worlds from nothing. A few sticks became swords, an empty lot became a kingdom. Games formed, collapsed, and reformed without adult help. Arguments happened, so did injuries, and when they did, kids figured it out themselves. This wasn't neglect, it was trust. Modern psychology now recognizes that unstructured play builds something called executive function, the brain's ability to plan, adapt, problem-solve, and self-direct. But in the 1970s, no one called it that. Kids were simply learning how to think. Without adults narrating every moment, children became sharp observers. They learned quickly which houses were safe shortcuts and which ones weren't. They could sense moods, read faces, and adjust behavior in real time. This wasn't anxiety, it was awareness. They developed instincts. When you're allowed to move freely through the world, you're forced to make decisions. You assess risk. You read situations. You trust your own judgment. That kind of mental independence doesn't come from instructions, it comes from experience. And it didn't stop outside. Afternoons often began with a house key pulled from under a flower pot. Kids let themselves in, made food, started homework, managed their time. Those quiet hours alone weren't lonely, they were empowering. Each day reinforced a powerful belief: I can handle things on my own. That belief became the backbone of resilience later in life. When things went wrong, they didn't panic or wait to be rescued. They asked a different question: what do I do next? And that question would quietly shape everything that followed. Boredom was the teacher. Here's a concept that sounds almost dangerous today: boredom. In the 1970s, boredom wasn't treated like an emergency. There were no instant distractions waiting in your pocket, no endless scroll, no immediate solutions. When kids said, "I'm bored," the response was simple: go find something to do. And that was the lesson. At first, boredom felt uncomfortable, restless, empty. But when you sat with it long enough, something happened. The mind started working, ideas appeared, creativity kicked in. Kids stared at clouds until they turned into stories. They reorganized collections for the 5th time. They called friends just to be bored together until someone came up with an idea worth chasing. They learned that boredom wasn't the enemy, it was a signal. Modern neuroscience now shows that periods of understimulation activate parts of the brain responsible for imagination, self-reflection, and original thinking. But back then, no one needed a study to explain it. Kids were living it. That tolerance for mental quiet carried into adulthood. People who grew up this way can sit in silence without discomfort. They don't panic in long lines. They don't need constant stimulation to feel okay. Their minds learned early that not every moment needs to be filled. And then there was solitude. Entire weekends could stretch ahead with no plans and no friends available. And surprisingly, that was fine. Kids read, drew, built imaginary worlds, rode bikes alone, thought deeply. They learned something rare: being alone is not the same as being lonely. This generation developed the ability to self-soothe, to exist comfortably in their own thoughts. That skill later became emotional stability, independence, and inner calm. In today's hyper-connected world, many people struggle to be alone with their thoughts. But for those raised in the 1970s, solitude was normal, even enjoyable. And that quiet mental strength would soon be tested through risk, failure, and emotional pain.